Long Beach, California. Summer of 1964, the International Karate Championship had transformed the Long Beach Municipal Auditorium into a cathedral of combat, where the finest martial artists from across the globe had gathered to showcase their deadly arts. Behind the main stage, in a spacious demonstration area with concrete floors and fluorescent lights humming overhead, approximately 40 martial artists formed a tight semicircle around a young Chinese instructor who moved with the fluid grace of smoke rising from incense. But not everyone in that room was impressed. Yamamoto stood at the back of the crowd. His massive arms crossed over a chest that resembled a barrel wrapped in muscle. At 6 feet 1 inch and 210 pounds of pure grappling-hardened power, Yamamoto was not a man who blended into crowds. His presence commanded attention the way a thundercloud commands the sky before a storm. Just months earlier, at the Tokyo Olympics, he had earned a bronze medal in judo, throwing opponents twice as experienced with a ferocity that earned him the nickname the Strangler. His grip strength was legendary. Once he locked his hands around an opponent, escape was considered mathematically impossible. In 12 years of competitive judo, spanning over 300 matches, not a single opponent had ever broken free from his ground control. Not one. Yamamoto had heard the whispers about this Bruce Lee character. The martial arts community buzzed with rumors of supernatural speed, of punches that arrived before they departed, of a philosophy that challenged everything traditional schools had taught for centuries. But Yamamoto had seen countless strikers in his career. They all shared the same fatal flaw. The moment a grappler closed the distance, the moment hands seized fabric or flesh, all that beautiful striking technique became as useful as a sword underwater. The air in the demonstration area was thick with the mingled scents of sweat, liniment, and anticipation. The concrete walls seemed to absorb the tension, holding it like a sponge holds water. Every breath felt heavy with significance, as though the universe itself understood that something unprecedented was about to unfold. Bruce Lee, standing in the center of that human circle, appeared almost fragile compared to the giants surrounding him. At 5 feet 7 inches and barely 140 pounds, he looked more like a dancer than a fighter. But those who knew better, those who had seen him move, understood that appearances in martial arts meant nothing. Ed Parker, the legendary Kenpo master who had organized this championship and personally invited Bruce to demonstrate, watched from the side with knowing eyes. If you want to discover how this confrontation between the unstoppable grappler and the untouchable striker ended, and learn the lesson that would influence the future of mixed martial arts for generations to come, stay until the end of this story. You won't regret it. The demonstration had been progressing smoothly for nearly 20 minutes. Bruce had shown his intercepting fist techniques, his lightning-fast kicks that seemed to teleport rather than travel, his finger jabs that stopped millimeters from vital targets with surgical precision. The assembled martial artists, karate practitioners, kung fu masters, taekwondo experts watched, with varying degrees of admiration and skepticism, but it was during a demonstration of trapping hands that Yamamoto decided he had seen enough. Excuse me, his deep voice cut through the murmurs of appreciation. Like a blade through silk, the crowd parted as he stepped forward, his judo gi pristine white against his tanned skin, his black belt worn soft from years of combat. These techniques are impressive for demonstrations. Bruce paused mid-movement, his dark eyes finding Yamamoto with an expression of calm curiosity. You have a question, not a question. An observation. Yamamoto's English carried a slight accent, but was perfectly clear. Everything you've shown requires your opponent to stand at a distance and throw punches. Very cooperative of them. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. But what happens when someone like me closes that distance? When I grab you? He held up his hands thick, calloused, with fingers like steel cables. In judo, we have a saying, the fight is over once I touch you. The silence that followed was absolute. Every martial artist present understood the implications. This was not mere curiosity, this was a challenge. The eternal debate that had divided martial arts for centuries was about to be tested. What happens when a world-class grappler catches a world-class striker? Bruce's expression never changed. That slight smile, enigmatic as moonlight on water, remained fixed on his features. You believe your grip is inescapable? I don't believe. I know. Yamamoto stepped closer, now just 10 feet from Bruce. 300 matches. Olympic competition. No one has ever escaped once I established control. No one then grabbed me. The words hung in the air like a challenge written in fire. Several martial artists exchanged glances of disbelief. Had this small Chinese man just invited an Olympic judoka to grapple with him? Yamamoto's eyes narrowed. He had expected resistance, perhaps a philosophical deflection. This direct acceptance caught him off guard, but only for a moment. "You understand what you're agreeing to." "I understand you wish to test something," Bruce replied, his voice carrying the calm of a still pond. "I am curious to let us both learn." Ed Parker stepped forward slightly, concern evident on his face. But Bruce raised a subtle hand, barely a gesture, but enough. Parker nodded and stepped back. He had seen what Bruce could do. The others had not. Yamamoto dropped into his judo stance, knees bent, hands reaching forward like the claws of a hunting eagle. Every muscle in his body coiled with potential energy. He had thrown men 50 pounds heavier than himself. This small striker would be child's play. He lunged. What happened next would be debated for years by everyone present, each witness swearing to a slightly different version because human eyes simply could not process what they saw. Yamamoto's hands shot forward in a grip that had captured 300 opponents and closed on empty air. Bruce had not jumped backward. He had not sidestepped in any conventional sense. He had simply ... flowed, like water through fingers. Like smoke through a grasping hand, Yamamoto spun, his judo reflexes compensating instantly. His hand shot out, and this time caught Bruce's wrist. Contact. Finally, contact. The Strangler's grip locked down with crushing force. For one heartbeat, triumph flashed in Yamamoto's eyes. Then Bruce's wrist rotated a small, almost imperceptible movement. Suddenly, Yamamoto was gripping nothing. His fingers, which had never failed to hold simply, slipped, as if Bruce's arm had been coated in oil, as if the very bones had momentarily become liquid. "Again," Bruce said softly. Yamamoto's face flushed. He shot forward with a double-leg takedown, the technique that had won him his Olympic medal. His arms wrapped around Bruce's waist, his shoulder driving into the smaller man's midsection. This was it. No one escaped the clinch, but Bruce didn't try to escape. Instead, he flowed with the energy, his body becoming impossibly light, and in the same instant that Yamamoto committed fully to the takedown, Bruce's elbow materialized at the judoka's throat, not striking, hovering. A promise of devastation, held in perfect check. Yamamoto froze. The position was clear to everyone watching. Had this been a real fight, his trachea would have been crushed before he completed the takedown. He released Bruce and stepped back, breathing hard, not from exertion, but from the shock of experiencing something his 20 years of training had never prepared him for. "Your grip is strong," Bruce acknowledged. "Your technique is excellent, but you are fighting my body." He tapped his temple. "You should be fighting my mind, and my mind had already escaped before your hands arrived." "That's impossible," Yamamoto breathed. "I had you. I felt you. You felt where I was. By the time you felt it, I was somewhere else." Bruce's smile carried no mockery, only patience, the patience of a teacher who has found an unexpected student. "Would you like to try once more? This time, I will let you establish full control. Any grip you want, take your time." The offer seemed suicidal to everyone watching. Yamamoto's ground control was legendary. Once he achieved full mount or back control, escape was considered impossible, even for other elite judo. For a striker to voluntarily submit to such a position bordered on madness, but Yamamoto had felt something in those brief exchanges, something that challenged everything he knew. He needed to understand. "Any grip," he confirmed. "Any grip. Full control. I won't resist until you're ready." Yamamoto moved carefully this time, like a python slowly constricting its prey. He secured Bruce's wrist, then his collar, then executed a flawless hip throw that took Bruce to the ground. Within seconds, he had achieved the mount position, knees pinning Bruce's arms, full body weight pressing down, hands controlling the smaller man's collar, in a grip that could transition to a choke in milliseconds. "Now what?" Yamamoto asked, and there was genuine curiosity mixed with his triumph. "You cannot strike from here. You cannot escape. This is where all strikers die." Bruce lay beneath him, perfectly calm. Are you comfortable? What, your position? Are you settled? Yamamoto frowned. Yes, this is full control. Good. What happened next became legend. Bruce's hips exploded upward with a force that seemed disproportionate to his size. Simultaneously, his trapped hands executed a movement so subtle that Yamamoto's grip simply ... failed. One moment the Strangler had complete control. The next, Bruce had reversed the position entirely. But he didn't stop there. In a fluid continuation that seemed to violate the laws of physics, Bruce flowed from the escape into a standing position. And before Yamamoto could process what had happened, he found himself on his back with Bruce's foot hovering 1 inch above his temple. The entire sequence had taken less than 2 seconds. Silence, complete. An absolute silence. Yamamoto lay on the concrete floor, staring up at the foot that could have crushed his skull, and felt something he hadn't experienced since childhood. Genuine humility in the face of the impossible. The grab is not the problem, Bruce said. Lowering his foot and extending a hand to help Yamamoto up, the grab is just a position. Every position has weaknesses. Your mistake is believing that establishing control is the end of the fight. He pulled Yamamoto to his feet. It is merely the beginning of a different phase. Yamamoto stood shakily, his world fundamentally altered. How I've trained for 20 years. No one has ever you trained to be the best grappler, Bruce interrupted gently. You succeeded, but you trained within the boundaries of grappling. I have no boundaries. When you grabbed me, you expected me to fight like a grappler. But I am water. I take the shape of whatever container tries to hold my own water cannot be grasped. The assembled martial artists began murmuring among themselves. What they had witnessed transcended style versus style. This was a demonstration of principle over technique, of adaptability over specialization. Yamamoto bowed deep. Sensei, I have been arrogant. I believed that my way was the only way, that grappling was the answer to all fighting questions. He straightened, and his eyes held a new light. Will you teach me? Not to abandon my judo, but to become water. Bruce's smile widened. The greatest strength is knowing your weakness. You just discovered yours. That takes courage, more courage than winning 300 matches. He placed a hand on Yamamoto's shoulder. I don't want you to abandon judo. Judo is beautiful, powerful, effective. I want you to stop letting judo be a cage. Use it as a tool, not a prison. In the months that followed, Ken Yamamoto became an unofficial student of Bruce Lee's philosophy. He never abandoned judo. If anything, his technical skills continued to improve. But something fundamental had changed. He began integrating striking defense into his teaching. He started asking his students the question that had transformed him. What happens when your perfect technique meets someone who refuses to play by your rules? Years later, long after Bruce Lee's tragic passing in 1973, Yamamoto would open his own academy in San Francisco. The sign above the door read Yamamoto Judo, but the curriculum told a different story. His students learned throws and submissions, yes, but they also learned to strike, to move, to adapt. When asked about his unorthodox approach, he would tell the story of that summer day in Long Beach. I was the best grappler in that room, he would say, his voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. I had an Olympic medal to prove it. But Bruce Lee taught me that being the best at one thing means nothing if you cannot adapt to everything. The moment I stopped trying to make Bruce fight my fight, the moment I started learning to flow like he did, that was the moment I became a true martial artist. The confrontation between Bruce Lee and Ken Yamamoto became a foundational story in the eventual development of mixed martial arts. It demonstrated that no single style held all the answers, that adaptability trumped specialization, and that the greatest fighters were those who refused to be defined by any single approach. Bruce Lee often said, "Be water, my friend." On that hot summer day in Long Beach, an Olympic judoka learned what those words truly meant, not through philosophy or lecture, but through the undeniable experience of trying to grasp something that simply refused to be held. If this story inspired you to think differently about limitations and adaptability, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that being the best at one thing is just the beginning of the journey. Leave a comment telling us what lesson you take from this legendary encounter. between two warriors who discovered that true martial arts transcends any single style. We'll see you in the next video with more incredible stories from the world of martial arts.